Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I have recently been tagged by a couple of YouTubers, two different tags. One is the Bible tag, tagged by the Book Zealots channel, and the other one is the Memento Mori tag that Heather Reeds just tagged me on. And I thought I would start with that one actually, for two reasons. It's a little shorter and I want to spend a little more time on the longer one, the Bible tag. But also today was Ash Wednesday and it seemed like an appropriate time to do the Memento Mori tag. So there are 8 questions and I have decided to write a script this time, which I will riff off of here. So let's just get right into it. The first question is, how many books will you be able to read before you die, considering your age and statistical life expectancy? Now, I would reckon about 60 years left to go, assuming nothing bad happens, assuming I continue in decent health, and based on, family history. I mean, it could go a number of ways, honestly, but that plus like improvements in medicine and everything, I'm gonna say roughly 60 years left if I live a full lifespan. I took an average of the number of books I've read over the last 9 years, and I've averaged to 34 books a year, so that comes out to about 2,040 books left to go, which is more than 3 times the books that are on my Goodreads Red Shelf, which is 618. Now those numbers are, not hard science or anything, but yeah, that's a lot. That's quite a bit, and I'm sure some of those years there'll be more books read than others, but yeah, 2,040 books. Question number 2, how does this number affect your choice of books? It doesn't really. I am a mood reader, if ever there was one. I do have various projects that I am doing, like Heather and Joseph said when they answered the tag. The Reading the World Challenge has been great fun. Plan to continue that indefinitely, or at least till all the countries have been reached. And I have a couple of other reading projects that are listed on my blog. For example, reading about war and pacifism. I have some older projects that I've kind of put on the shelf for the time being, no pun intended. Reading about polar exploration, reading about T.E. Lawrence. I think there was another one too. Some of these I have not really returned to in full force yet, but those are the kinds of things I can see returning to. And of course, there's always new reading projects to pursue. But generally speaking, though, I don't make a lot of plans for reading. I will say I've been doing a lot more read-alongs lately, so there's that. But yeah, the number itself doesn't affect my choice of books. If anything, it seems like quite a lot of books left, and I feel good about that. I'm not worried. Okay, number 3. What will happen to your book collection once you have passed away? So, I have thought about this in a way. I try to treat all of my books as if I'm just the temporary owner of them. I like keeping books really nice and pristine anyway, but, it's nice to think that if they ever end up in someone else's hands, that it'll be almost like having a new book. And I think one reason for that, honestly, is because when I was very young, I mostly read, like a lot of library books. My family bought quite a few books too, but I spent a lot of time reading library books. And when you're reading books that have been really beat up and, are kind of sad, you just kind of have this desire to have books that are really nice and neat and pretty. So that's kind of where that comes from. But anyway, I digress. So what will happen to the book collection when I'm gone? So if I were to pass away soon, I would say my brother gets first dibs because he is geographically my closest reading buddy, and we often go to the bookstore together throughout the year anyway, and it's just really been my best reading buddy that lives close by, and we like a lot of the same kinds of books too, so he's welcome to any of the ones he like, and then any other family and friends who want any books can have some, and then anything left over I'm hoping will be taken to a secondhand store or the thrift store, or put into those little library mailboxes that you see around. So yeah. Number 4, is there a book that helps you cope with the disturbing fact of a limited lifespan? Now, I took quite a bit of time with this question because this presupposes that a limited lifespan is something that the person is fearful of. But I honestly have never thought much about having a long life. I mean, only very recently have I thought about it occasionally, but generally speaking, it's not something I've ever really thought about or even expected. So I think there's kind of 2 drivers for that. One is that as a Christian, the disturbing fact that we grapple with isn't so much physical death, but spiritual death, this separation of the soul from God. And this separation persists after physical death if you are not first reunited with God through Christ. So that would be what would be more disturbing to me. The other thing, though, is that when I was very little, I became very fascinated by stories of saints and martyrs. Daniel in the Lion's Den was a big one, but also Joan of Arc, especially Joan of Arc. I heard about her when I was really little, and this girl who survives being shot by arrows, she jumps out of a tower to escape imprisonment, gets recaptured, and then cruelly executed when she's just 19. That just left a big impression on me, and I became very aware of, impressed by, impacted by this idea that, for many people throughout history, there have been things worth dying for, and that not everyone lives a nice long life. So that was huge. Now later on, I would say my relationship to death took a bit of a different turn. So I've dealt with a lot of mental health struggles throughout life, and it was particularly bad in college. So I actually used books to help me cope with the day-to-day and escape from some of that. So I would say books were actually a way to help cope with life rather than death. I strongly identified with Mishkin from The Idiot by Dostoevsky, and there were just a lot of books at that time that really helped me through that. So yeah, the times that I have actually been afraid of death have been, I would say, very few. I could probably count them on one hand. There was one time that I had an experience where I thought I might be dying, and that was in college. And I didn't turn to books per se. What I did do was I prayed the Lord's Prayer, and it's such a powerful prayer. It is short, and it is also a very beautiful poem, and things got better after that. But I just would say that ultimately everything that's got me through life and death is related to my faith, and especially my relationship with Jesus. So, I mean, I guess I could say the Bible, but really my relationship with Jesus exists both within and outside the Bible, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that's my long answer to number 4. Okay, number 5. Which book on this topic do you consider the most witty or entertaining one? I haven't read a lot of books specifically about death. I know there are plenty of them. I know Tolstoy wrote one that I have been meaning to read, but I just haven't read a whole lot of them. One book that kind of touches on this, although it's not specifically about it, is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, and I think it's very witty and entertaining, but it's also very dark, so make of that what you will. It is like my favorite book right now, so. Let's see, question number 6. Do you have a specific non-fiction book on the topic of death that you'd like to recommend? So I think that I would recommend A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis. It's more about grief than death per se, but it is based on his experiences after the death of his wife. They'd only been married for 4 years. They were in their 50s, I think. And I'm not like a huge C.S. Lewis fan or anything. He's very hit and miss for me. And I didn't agree with everything he said in this book. But it was impactful. I read it in a time I was grieving, and I appreciated how raw it was, how honest he was, and it just was a very worthwhile read, so would recommend A Grief Observed. Number 7. Humor can be helpful to confront death. Do you have a favorite witty quote on this topic? I'm not sure if this is all that funny or witty, but I like this one from Peter Pan. To die will be an awfully big adventure. And this quote is very often misquoted as to live will be an awfully big adventure, but I think that's kind of a cop-out. I think it has to go with the original. To die will be an awfully big adventure. And of course, Peter Pan, what is it about? It's about all these kids that disappeared. Well, you know, I think a euphemism for death, honestly. So it's very dark, but I like the quote. I like the optimism of it. I like, it's just very charming and yet profound. So, last question. Does this tag make you feel uneasy, or are you quite relaxed about this topic? Well, I'm fairly relaxed about this topic. I think it's an interesting tag, and yeah, it's an interesting one. Do I want to tag anybody? Yeah, I will tag 2 people. I will tag Courtney Reeds and Marianne Guevara. If you want to do it, yeah, I'd love to hear your answers. If you don't feel comfortable doing it or just not interested, that's fine too. So yeah, thanks Heather for the tag, and thanks to David for creating it. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.